get ready to have your minds blown, because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of magnetism.
But not the kind you learned about in school.
We're going way beyond the simple magnet sticking to your fridge.
Right. We're talking about some incredible discoveries happening at the nanoscale.
That's right, and to guide us through this, we have this fascinating research article titled Magnetism Redefined: The Nanoscale Discovery Powering Future Technology.
This article dives into a truly groundbreaking finding that has the potential to completely revolutionize electronics.
I'm already intrigued, so let's jump right in. First things first, can you help me picture the nanoscale? How small are we actually talking?
Well, imagine shrinking a single human hair 1,000,000 times thinner.
Wow. Okay, that's mind-bogglingly small.
And at that size, researchers at the University of Missouri have discovered something remarkable.
What is it?
They found a brand new quasiparticle that exists in all magnetic materials.
Hold on, a quasiparticle. That sounds like something out of Star Trek.
I know it sounds strange, right? But it's actually a pretty simple concept.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Think about the bubbles in a glass of sparkling water.
Okay, I can picture that.
They're not really independent things. They're more like disturbances that act like particles.
Oh, I see.
And quasiparticles are similar. They emerge from these complex interactions of electrons within a material.
So in this case, are these quasiparticles made up of like electron spins or something?
You got it. It is pretty mind-bending though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap my head around.
And what's even more fascinating is that these quasiparticles can move incredibly fast within magnetic materials.
Really?
Yeah, it really challenges the old static view we have of magnetism.
So instead of picturing magnets just sitting there, we should imagine them like buzzing with activity at the nanoscale.
You got it. And get this discovery has huge implications for the future of electronics.
Okay, I'm officially hooked. How does this connect to electronics, though?
It all comes down to a field called spintronics.
Spintrons?
Instead of using the electrons charged like we do in traditional electronics, spintronics uses the power of their spin.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So instead of electrons flowing like water through a pipe, we're talking about like flipping a switch really, really fast.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And because spins can flip much faster than we can move charges around, spintronics could mean data transfer speeds that are lightning fast.
Like downloading a movie in a fraction of a second.
Exactly.
That's incredible. But what about energy use? Like our phones die way too fast already.
That's another massive advantage of spintronics. Because it takes way less energy to flip a spin than to move an electron, these devices could be unbelievably energy efficient.
Like how much more efficient are we talking?
Think a cell phone battery that could last for hundreds of hours on a single charge.
Okay, now that would be revolutionary. But how did the researchers even discover these quasiparticles? It's not like they just stumbled upon them, right?
Oh, definitely not. It was a real team effort. It involved experimental physicists, Deepak Singh, Carsten Ullrich, and Daniel Hill at the University of Missouri.
Okay.
Along with Yasin Guo at Oak Ridge National Laboratory.
What a team.
They all collaborated on this research using a very complex technique.
What did they use?
It's called spin and angle-resolved photoemission spectroscopy.
Wow, that sounds incredibly complex.
It basically lets them take snapshots of how the electrons are behaving inside the material.
So they actually saw these quasiparticles in action.
They did. And the results were huge. They were even published in the super prestigious journal, Nature.
So this is a really big deal.
It's a game changer. It's not just important for understanding magnetism, but for the entire future of technology.
So wait, are you saying that even those simple magnets we see every day are more complex than we realize?
Isn't it amazing? There's this entire world of activity going on at the nanoscale that we are only just beginning to uncover.
This is blowing my mind. What could this mean if we can actually learn to control these quasiparticles? What could that do for technology?
Now that's the big question, right?
It is.
And that's where spintronics comes in.
Ah.
But before we get into that, let's take a closer look at how this research was conducted.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we've got these quasiparticles zooming around inside magnets.
And they're moving super fast.
And you're saying we can use that for spintronics?
Exactly. Our electronics now are based on moving electrons around.
Right.
Which creates heat and wastes energy.
Yeah, our devices get so hot.
But these quasiparticles, they're different.
How?
We're talking about manipulating spins,
right,
which is much more efficient.
Less wasted energy,
right,
so our devices could last longer and they wouldn't get so hot.
That's the idea.
I like that a lot. But how would this work in the real world? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's look at data storage.
Okay.
Your computer uses a hard drive or flash memory to store data as electrical charges.
Right.
It works, but it's kind of slow.
And it doesn't hold that much information.
Yeah, and they fail all the time.
Ugh, tell me about it. I've lost so many files to those hard drives.
But imagine a spintronic hard drive.
Okay.
Instead of using charges, it would use the spins of these quasiparticles to store the data.
And that would be better because
Those spins can be flipped incredibly quickly. So we have super fast data transfer speeds.
So no more waiting forever for a file to download?
Pretty much instantaneous.
Wow, that's impressive. So is data storage the only place spintronics could make a difference?
Not at all. Spintronics could revolutionize tons of electronics.
Like what?
Computers that are way faster, but also use less energy.
Yeah.
So they don't need huge cooling systems.
Thinner and more powerful laptops that don't burn my legs.
Exactly.
I'm liking this more and more.
It goes beyond laptops, too.
What else?
Smartphones that last for weeks on one charge.
Wow.
Or medical devices that are more precise.
Okay, I'm convinced spintronics sounds awesome. But let's talk about the research again. This wasn't an overnight discovery, was it?
Oh, no, definitely not.
How long has this been in the works?
The team has been at it for years.
Wow.
They published some earlier research in Nature Communications,
Okay.
looking at similar things at the nanoscale. And this new paper builds on all of that work.
So this paper takes it to a new level.
Exactly.
It's amazing how much work and collaboration goes into scientific discoveries.
It really does.
It takes a village.
Yeah. Deepak Singh's team at the University of Missouri led the experiments.
Oh, cool.
And then Carsten Ullrich and Daniel Hill worked on the theoretical side.
So they all work together.
They did. They also used the facilities at Oak Ridge National Laboratory.
Okay.
They have really sophisticated equipment there. It's amazing what they can do.
It sounds like the perfect team.
Yeah.
So what got them started on this research in the first place? What were they trying to find out?
That's a good question.
Mm.
You know, the paper focuses more on the discovery itself.
Okay.
It doesn't really go into their motivations, but I think it all comes down to curiosity
Curiosity about what?
about magnetism and how things work differently at the nanoscale.
Right, like the rules of physics change.
Totally. It's like a whole new world down there.
So many things to discover.
And this discovery just shows us how much more there is to magnets than we thought.
Yeah, it's like they have this whole secret life going on. This has been an incredible conversation. But before we get too carried away, are there any downsides to spintronics? Any challenges?
You're right. We should talk about that. One of the biggest challenges is figuring out how to control those quasiparticles.
How do you mean?
We can see them now, but we need to learn how to manipulate them really precisely to make spintronic devices.
Like having the tools but not knowing how to use them yet.
Exactly. And then there's the question of materials.
Okay.
We need the right materials that have these quasiparticle behaviors.
And we haven't found the perfect materials yet.
We're still searching. There's a lot of research and development to do.
It sounds like it'll be a while before we see spintronics everywhere.
It does take time to go from discovery to practical applications.
Right.
But the potential is there, and scientists and engineers are working hard.
So what's next for the researchers in this study?
Well, now they need to figure out how to control those quasiparticles.
Right.
They need to find different materials, experiment with different techniques, and collaborate with engineers to actually build devices.
It sounds like they have their work cut out for them.
They do. But it'll be worth it.
It will. And it's not just these researchers, right?
Right. The whole scientific community is excited about this.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to even more discoveries.
This is what I love about science.
Me too. It's always pushing forward.
Always learning more.
And who knows what we'll discover next.
So if those quasiparticles are in all magnets, does that mean even the simple magnets on our fridges are that complex?
It's wild, right?
It really is. It's like there's so much more to the world than we can see.
There really is. Even everyday things can have these incredible secrets.
It makes you wonder what else is out there.
Exactly.
Let's take a minute to think about what we've learned today. What are the biggest takeaways?
I think the main takeaway is that we're at the beginning of something huge.
With spintronics.
Yes, spintronics could change everything about how we live and work.
And it all started with these tiny particles.
And the scientists who discovered them.
It shows how important scientific research is.
And collaboration.
You never know what you might find.
This is just the start of the spintronics story. There's so much more to come.
And we'll be here to talk about it every step of the way.
We will.
So stay curious, everyone, and keep exploring.
We'll see you next time.
We're back, and it's easy to get caught up in all the amazing things spintronics could do.
Faster downloads, longer battery life.
It's exciting stuff, but I think we need to think about the bigger picture, too.
I agree. Every new technology comes with new questions and challenges.
Right, like what about the environmental impact?
Exactly. Spintronics could be more efficient.
Uh-huh.
But We have to think about how we make these new devices, too.
We don't want to create new problems while solving old ones.
Right.
And what about the economic side of things?
Spintronics could really shake things up.
How so?
Well, some companies might not be able to adapt.
They might get left behind.
Yeah, while others could become the new leaders in spintronics.
It's like a whole new tech landscape.
It is. And we have to think about the social impact, too.
What do you mean?
We need to make sure everyone has access to spintronics.
So it doesn't just benefit a select few.
Right. We don't want to make inequality worse.
So it's not just about the science, it's about how we use it.
Technology is powerful.
And we have to use it responsibly.
For the good of everyone.
You know, this whole conversation has made me think about magnets differently.
How so?
We've been talking about these quasiparticles, and they're in every magnet.
Right. Even the ones on our fridge.
It's like there's this hidden world inside them.
It is. It just shows you that there's so much more to the universe than we realize.
Even everyday things can be full of mysteries.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what other secrets are out there.
I know. And we're still just figuring out how to control these quasiparticles.
All right, you said there are challenges.
One of the biggest is precision.
What does that mean?
We need to learn how to manipulate them super precisely.
To build spintronic devices that work.
Exactly. Imagine trying to control an orchestra, but at the atomic level.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then there's the materials themselves.
Right, you said we need the right ones.
We need materials with strong spin behaviors.
That we can use to actually make things.
Exactly. And that's not easy to find.
It sounds like a lot of trial and error.
It is, but the payoff could be huge.
It's amazing that we're just at the beginning of all this.
I know. Who knows what we'll discover next?
This has been an incredible deep dive.
I agree.
I've learned so much about magnetism and spintronics.
It's a fascinating field.
It is. So for our listeners who want to learn more, where should they go?
There's a lot of great information online.
Articles and videos?
Yes. And you can check out university websites.
The ones doing spintronics research.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And keep an eye on the news because new discoveries are happening all the time.
It's a fast-moving field.
It is.
I want to thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been fun.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into magnetism and spintronics.
Keep those minds curious.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.